She is abnormal person, but rather an American colonel and official who chose to raise her voice for justice. She opposed the war on Iraq, stood against the Zionist occupation of Palestine, and became an activist for the Palestinian cause, as she participated in the Freedom Flotilla that aimed to break the siege on Gaza. The retired United States Army colonel and retired U.S. State Department official Ann Wright, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you, as abnormal as I am for
You're
Palestine.
trying to be a normal, but actually you are abnormal.
Thank you.
Okay, it's not easy actually to be a colonel in the US Army. You were a part of the US system. Tell us about this experience.
Well, I didn't join the Army to kill anyone. I joined the Army to get out of the American state called Arkansas, where I grew up. And I wanted to travel, and I joined the military, as many people, young people, do in the United States. The military provides a way for either education, for travel, for whatever. But its main purpose, of course, is military operations, which end up killing innocent civilians. I stayed with the military for a long, long time, and then I joined another part of the U.S. government, the U.S. Diplomatic Corps, and working for the State Department. And one could say that it's the State Department and the policies of the United States which gets the U.S. military into these killing operations. So my background is part of, I'm glad I did what I did, but because it gives me a better background to analyze what's happening in the world. And then the activism that I have for Palestine and for other causes is based on a lot of knowledge of what the U.S. government has done, and that I now disagree totally with.
But before talking about your activities for Palestine, we have to talk about your position against the war on Iraq, because you know the issues connected to each other.
Indeed. Well, I had gone to, first I'll tell about Afghanistan. After 9/11 and the United States government deciding that it would reopen its embassy in Kabul, Afghanistan, that had been closed for 13 years.
Mhm.
I volunteered to be on the small team that went to Kabul, Afghanistan to reopen the embassy, because I wanted to see why the response of the U.S. government to 9/11 was taking a military approach rather than an international law approach of tracking down people that were a part of an organization that committed these horrific things on 9/11, but for the United States to decide that it would use its military in Afghanistan to go after the leadership of Al-Qaeda, it didn't make sense to me. And I decided that I would volunteer to go to the U.S. Embassy to reopen that and then see for my own eyes what was going on. And it was while I was in Afghanistan that messages came from Washington saying, we cannot respond to the things you think as a collective group should happen in Afghanistan because we are now focusing on Iraq. It was like, what are you guys doing in Washington? Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, and it was a project of a small group of people in the U.S. government to take down the Saddam Hussein regime. And after I left Afghanistan, I went on to what turned out to be my last assignment, which was as the deputy ambassador at the U.S. Embassy in Mongolia. And it was there in the lead up to the war on Iraq that we kept getting messages from Washington saying, this is the reason that we need for you to tell the Mongolian government that Saddam Hussein is a danger to the world, that he has weapons of mass destruction, that whole spiel that the U.S. government was giving to the world. And I was very uneasy with that. I didn't believe what my own government was saying. And then the U.S. government said, we need for you at the U.S. Embassy in Mongolia and all the embassies really around the world, we need to get militaries from other countries to join this coalition of the willing. And it was like, well, I'm not going to the Mongolians to say, you need to cough up some people to go into this coalition. And it was just one thing after another.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, it was, I'm not going to be a part of this. So after being a part of a lot of different things that now friends in the activist community go, how could you have stayed in the government through all of these years and years and years? Well, finally, it was the war on Iraq that I finally said, no, I'm not going to have any part of that. And so I resigned in March of 2003 in opposition to the U.S. war on Iraq.
So you used to discover the real situation by yourself away from the American official propaganda.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're with any government agency, no, and it doesn't matter which country you live in, there's a lot of propaganda that your
Yes.
own government does. And I was well aware of the U.S. propaganda on a variety of issues and a variety of decisions that the U.S. government had made. But this one, it was, I'm not going along with the propaganda that you have on this. And, even now we have diplomats in the United States who have resigned over the U.S. role in the complicity in the genocide of Gaza. And in talking with them, it was the same thing, that they were fed up with listening to the rationalization that the U.S. government was saying on that issue, on the support for Israel's horrific attacks on innocent civilians in Gaza. So that's kind of a common theme of those of us that have resigned from governments, that finally you get fed up with listening to the lies that your own government's saying.
Okay. Regarding to Palestinian issue before 7th October, we all know that the Zionist narrative was dominant in the American media. So how did you know the real story of Nakba and of what's really happening in Palestine?
Well, I had never, as a diplomat, I had not served in the Middle East, but the issue of Palestine was always something that was brought up to you as a U.S. diplomat. Why does the U.S., and it doesn't matter which country that you served in. I was with U.S. embassies in Nicaragua, Grenada, Somalia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sierra Leone, Micronesia, Afghanistan, and Mongolia.
Mm-hmm.
And every place that I was a U.S. diplomat, the question came up, why does the U.S. always support Israel no matter what it does to Palestinians?
So you're also asking this question, not just us.
That's right. Well, the people around the world are asking U.S. diplomats,
Yeah.
why does your country always support Israel? And you never support anything that the Palestinians do. And the answer back, as a representative of the U.S. government, for me at the time was, well, the United States supported the creation of the State of Israel, and it's just been the policy of the United States that we support Israel. So, it was a terrible answer, but having been out of the government, now I can say that, well, it is the policy of every administration. There's been no change since 1948. Every U.S. administration has supported the State of Israel. But I can say more about it, that there are huge lobbies for the State of Israel and for Jewish American groups that are totally supportive of anything the State of Israel does. And those same groups contribute to congressional campaigns and presidential campaigns, and they contribute a lot of money to get people elected that will vote for anything Israel
Yes.
wants. And so that's really the behind the scenes story of it, that the domestic pressure of groups, and it's not only Jewish groups, it's Christian evangelical groups in the United States that are totally supportive of the state of Israel. So that's the real story behind the scenes, that there are a lot of people who are contributing to the election of officials on the local level, the state level, the national level, and in presidential contests, that the only reason they are giving money to these candidates is that they demand that the candidates support the state of Israel, and if they don't, they will make contributions to opponents of the folks who say, no, I won't vote for more weapons for Israel. I won't vote to condemn the Palestinians for their right to exist. So money has a lot to do with the U.S. policy on Israel and Palestine.
Unfortunately. So you left all of this, and from the colonial position, you choose to be an activist for the Palestinian rights.
Yes, yes, indeed. And my activism for Palestine started in January of 2009, and that was right after the 27-day Israeli attack on Gaza, and the destruction that even in American television we finally started seeing photographs of buildings that were blown up, and I mean a level of devastation that I really had not seen since the pictures of World War II and European cities that had been bombed out. So I mentioned to some friends that we really ought to go see for ourselves to see if that really is, if what we were seeing was any indication of what was really there. There was a lot more to the destruction than what we were seeing in the United States. So we went to Gaza and were able to get in for only 48 hours in January of 2009, and were able to take lots of pictures, talk to lots of people. And of course, we were devastated by seeing the level of destruction in 2009. I mean, it was just unbelievable that Israel could keep bombing and bombing and bombing, and the numbers of people that had been killed. I think it was 1,200 people that had been killed in that 27-day attack.
So you have been in Gaza during the war?
No, right after that ended, we were in probably the next week.
Okay.
So we were not there under the conditions of bombing, but we saw the aftermath of it very, very quickly, and the impact of it. And we went to the hospitals and spoke with family members of people who were in the hospital, and family members of those who had been killed. So in a very short period of time, we had seen a lot and talked to a lot of people, and we came back committed to taking more U.S. citizens to see what our bombs were doing to people in Gaza. So over the next year, in 2009, we had 8 different delegations that went to Gaza. Some of them were large, 50 and 60 people. Others were 10 to 15 to 20 people. But each delegation came back, and they had speaking engagements in their communities. They wrote articles. They did a lot of education in their own communities about what they'd seen. And then at the end of 2009, we decided that we would try to organize a group of people to go to Gaza, a bigger group, an international group. And so we called it the Gaza Freedom March. And in December of 2009, we had 1,350 people from 55 countries that came to Cairo. Okay. And we had arranged for bus transportation into Gaza. The people in Gaza had gymnasiums available for us to where we would sleep. We had everything organized. And then the Mubarak government of Egypt double-crossed us and said, after these people had, 1,300 people had already arrived in Cairo, and we were ready to leave to go to Gaza, and then the government said, there are no buses, you can't go.
Oh.
Yeah, so that meant that we had all of these activists from all over the world who were in Cairo, and they didn't like being told by the Egyptian government, you can't go to Gaza. So for the next week, we had activists that were everywhere doing things that Egyptian citizens were forbidden to do, like go to Tahrir Square in groups more than 6. We would have 500 people at Tahrir Square and 500 police that were surrounding us, but not arresting us. But if any Egyptians had come over to join with us, they would have been arrested.
Mm-hmm.
We had hunger strikes in front of the Ministry of Justice, at the UN, at the U.S. Embassy, at the Israeli Embassy. We did a lot of activism, and those 1,300 people went back to their homes all over the world with another story of how difficult it is at times to get the border with Rafah opened, that people really were living in an open-air prison, that they could not leave any time they wanted, that it was only when the Egyptian government or the Israeli government allowed them to leave. And from there, in 2010, I was a part of the Mavi Marmara flotilla. Yes. From, the large ship from here in Turkey that we had 7 ships actually in that flotilla, and about 700 people among all of the ships. But it was on the Mavi Marmara that the Israeli military killed 10 activists and wounded 50. And I was in a boat that was right next to the Mavi Marmara. So we saw the helicopters coming in. We heard weapons being fired from the boats that were coming alongside the Mavi Marmara. And then our boat was also attacked, and people on our boat were beaten up and tasered. And then we were all taken to prison in Israel. And
they did some investigations with you?
Oh, yeah, interrogations of why are you, as an American citizen, why are you on these boats? And so everyone was interrogated, and then we were put in prison for several days and then ultimately deported.
By the way, at that time, Brad Sherman's office made a public statement that any American who provides humanitarian aid to Gaza should be prosecuted under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. And even that, you was one of the 5 activists who offered themselves up to arrest.
Oh, yes. Brad Sherman is a Zionist. He is a total supporter of the state of Israel, and he was horrified that American citizens were on that flotilla. So when we heard that that's what Brad Sherman had said, and he also said, and they should go to jail. So we, friends of mine and myself, put jail uniforms on and walked over to his office in the Congress.
Okay.
And knocked on the door and said, "Oh, you said we're terrorists and we should go to jail. Well, try to put us in jail. Just try to put us in jail." And of course, the pictures of us standing there with our signs saying, "The real terrorist is inside this office. It's Brad Sherman that supports the state of Israel." And you in the U.S. Congress, still we can get away with a lot of different things, and particularly when a congressman says such totally inappropriate things, then we go after them. We don't let them get away with saying these sorts of things without us saying something back to them.
Okay. You have been in Gaza for 8 or 9 times.
Yes.
What is the most scenes that affected you in Gaza?
Well, there are positive, there are things that you're so happy about. I mean, that the Palestinian people are, despite all of the things that have happened, when you go to Gaza, the hospitality that's shown to you, even as an American, where Palestinians know that the Israelis get American weapons and bombs that are used to bomb them, and yet still they are very generous and hospitable to you as a person that's coming in to say, I'm in solidarity with you, and I'm working at home to try to stop the U.S. participation in these Israeli attacks. So the positive part is getting to meet and getting to know Palestinians that are living under very difficult situations, and yet they continue to have their kids in school, value education, value all of the things that it's difficult enough in a non-combat situation, but for them to continue to push during these very difficult times, it's so heartening. And I mean, everybody is in admiration of how Palestinians are able to continue despite what the Israelis and the world and my country is doing to them. And then on the negative side of it, it's just heartbreaking to see the destruction of lives, the destruction of homes, destruction, and now as we see in the genocide that's going on, I mean, the destruction of all the medical facilities, the universities, the schools, the infrastructure of Gaza that's being purposely destroyed.
Is there any specific story in Gaza affected you?
Well,
With
I mean,
people, I mean.
every story that you hear from people, of course, affects you, because they all live such tenuous lives in a way. I think probably the one that affects me the most was the doctor whose family, this was in 2009, and my apologies, I don't remember his name, but he lives in Canada now. And he had been working as a physician in Israel and was coming back into Gaza every day to be at home. But his place of work was in Israel. And when the Israelis came into Gaza, the ground invasion of Gaza in 2009, and his wife called him to say, there's an Israeli tank right outside of our home. And so he called up the Israeli military folks, because he knew some of them, and said, hey, you've got a tank right outside of our home. Why is it there? Move it away, and all that. Well, they didn't, and they blew up his home and killed 3 of his girls. And to go to that home within a week after all of that had happened, and to see the brazenness of what Israel, even in 2009, felt it could do. Here was a person that they knew personally. He worked to save lives in Israel as well as in Palestine, and yet they had no problem with blowing up his house and killing his kids.
Now you are over 78 years old and still have the power to protest for Palestine, especially in Congress.
Yes. Well, now, that we now have the genocide that Israel is doing with the complicity of the United States, with the United States giving billions of dollars of weapons to Israel and protecting Israel in every international forum, in the United Nations Security Council, where the U.S. has vetoed every ceasefire resolution that's come up. So anytime the U.S. Congress is meeting to discuss more weapons to Israel, then we always have a group of activists that go into these congressional hearings. And for example, with Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, when he testifies, we always have people that are there to remind him that what our weapons are doing is killing, and now it is a genocide in Gaza. So I've been arrested several times in the U.S. Congress for standing up during the congressional hearings to say, Tony Blinken, this is a lie what you're saying. The people in Palestine are being killed every day by U.S. bombs. And then, of course, you get escorted out, sometimes roughly, of the hearing room, and then arrested, and then you go to jail. But it's a small thing that one can do to remind the policymakers, because it's the only time we really get to see them is when they're at these congressional hearings, because you would never see them outside the State Department. You could stand there forever and never see Tony Blinken. The only time we can see him or the Secretary of Defense or any of the Congress people is when there are congressional hearings. So a whole group of us have, since October, we have been in the halls of Congress every single day to go to offices, taking petitions, taking information sheets, trying to make sure that the staffers of every congressional delegate has plenty of information about what's going on. And we ask that on certain votes that are coming up for aid to military aid to Israel, that they vote against it. We've gone into lobby to say the U.S. government should not stop its funding of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, which it has done. But we go in to plead with the staff members of the Congress members. We have 435 members of the House of Representatives and 100 senators. So we have 535 offices that we visit. Within every 2 weeks, we have been in every one of those offices. So you have to be in good physical shape, because we walk a lot every day. My shoes, I'm now on my third pair of shoes, because we're wearing our shoes out. But and the Capitol Hill Police, they know all of us. And every time we come in the morning, generally the police, how are you? Where are you going today? What disruption are you going to do? And it's like, well, we're here. We only disrupt when it's necessary, and anyway, so we are there all the time on behalf of the people of Palestine.
Did you contribute to change the mind of any American people about the real narrative of Palestine?
Well, I think in general, all of the protests that we've had, whether it's, I think it's the Palestinians in the United States that have changed the minds of more Americans than anyone else. I mean, the stories that Palestinians have told in the encampments that we've had at universities, and the major marches that we've had, that the opportunities for Palestinians to actually tell their own stories. This is the most opportunity, I think, that Palestinian Americans have had. For us that are not Palestinians, we certainly want to add our voice to what they are saying. And I think we have changed the minds of a lot of people in the United States. They're much more aware of the inequities of what the U.S. policies have been for the total support of the State of Israel. There are a lot of, now the polls are showing that 70% of the people of the United States say the U.S. should stop sending weapons to Israel, and that the U.S. should be working for a ceasefire. And so more and more Americans, finally see on TV the level of destruction that has happened, and the stories that the doctors and the nurses that are still left in Gaza are speaking about, the horrific injuries that people are having, kids and women and men, and then no medicines to help treat the injuries. I think it's finally gotten to the American public that this is so terrible, and no matter what the Israeli government says the rationale is for it, it's not a rationale we believe, and that the killing must stop. There must be an end to the U.S. sending weapons to Israel because we are complicit in what's happening.
But do you have any private discussions, especially with diplomatic people in America, in order to trying to change their minds or their decisions about what's happening in Gaza now?
Well, we try to have these discussions with them very seldom will we get appointments in the U.S. State Department. We've tried, but they know our position, which is we totally disagree with what the policy is. And on one level, as for a former diplomat, I can understand they are stuck. There are hundreds of U.S. government employees who have signed letters saying they don't like what's happening. They sign it anonymously, or the names never come out, but we know that there have been letters sent behind the scenes saying the policies are terrible. And we've had 12 people resign from the U.S. government over U.S. complicity in the genocide. We do try at think tanks, when think tanks have in-house events, to try to get to the policymakers that come to speak at those events. They know what's going on. They're very educated. They know exactly what's happening. And unfortunately, our pleas of them to change the behavior of our government or resign haven't been met very with much. They've made their decision. They're sticking with a policy that they will regret the rest of their lives. I mean, they will feel the shame of what they are doing for the rest of their lives. I just wrote an article about 20 senior women in the Biden administration who are very well educated. They've been in government positions for decades. They know right from wrong. One of them, Samantha Power, who's the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development and who has been the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under the Obama administration. She wrote a book called The Anatomy of a Genocide, and yet she is still a part of the Biden administration. She's protecting the policies of it. We have the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, who has been a part of the genocide. We have the wife of President Biden, who every day sees President Biden. And as a woman, as a grandmother, why is not she saying, I'll divorce you? You know, how can you be a part of this? How can you go along with, 45,000 Palestinians killed in less than a year and probably another 100,000 dead that we don't even know about, and all these kids that have been their legs amputated, their arms amputated. How can you go along with this, Joe Biden? We have, the list of 20 senior women, and I go through, I researched who they are, what their educational background is, and how many kids they have, as mothers, as grandmothers. I mean, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations is a grandmother, for God's sakes, and yet she's the one, as an African-American woman, as a grandmother, talk about oppression and colonialist. Linda Thomas Greenfield should be embarrassed and ashamed for the rest of her life for voting against it, as all of these 20 women should be. And of course, all the men of the administration ought to be ashamed of what they're doing. Really? So we do everything we can in our power. We've had, for over 9 months, we've had a 24-hour vigil at Tony Blinken's house, Secretary of State, at his house, right across the street from it for 9 months. of activists, and primarily led by Palestinian Americans that are there 24 hours a day with bullhorns yelling at him. Bloody Blinken, bloody Blinken. He has 3 kids. His wife works at the White House.
Oh.
They know exactly what's going on, and yet they continue to do it. And that's what makes us feel so frustrated. I mean, because they know what they're doing, and we cannot get to them to that the appeal of humanity toward these people is going nowhere. So they will regret this, of course, the rest of their lives at a certain point. But it doesn't bring back the lives of the 100,000 Palestinians that have been killed.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, what kind of campaigns could really make the United States to not send the military aids to Israel?
Well, we've tried everything. We have, we've had the vigils at Tony Blinken's house. We have vigils at the White House every single day. We've had marches. We've had demonstrations, blockades at weapons manufacturers, trying to get the people that work in the companies that make these weapons to say, I'm not going to make those anymore. We've had blockades at ports so that boats could either not come in or go out that we think are carrying weapons. So we've tried a lot of different things, and unfortunately, none of them have been effective. That the U.S. government still continues to provide Israel with a huge amount of weaponry that is killing people in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon. And we're heartbroken every day that we can't get this to stop.
But we have to encourage people to keep going in these campaigns.
Yeah, we do.
So what we have to do?
Yeah, well, we have to keep doing what we're doing for sure, and appeal to people. And I mean, the people are ready. People continue to be on the streets. They continue to, whenever you announce an action, people will come to it. It's not that people are forgetting this at all, but we're just not having the effect we need. We had Palestinian Americans and other allies that were at the National Democratic Convention trying to get the Democratic Party to say that, yes, a Palestinian could speak for 2 minutes at the party convention. We had a uncommitted vote campaign saying that delegates to the conventions would vote uncommitted. They wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris as the nominee. They would just say, I'm uncommitted. And even during the election, uncommitted. So there are all sorts of innovative things to let the powers in the government know that there's such dissension and dissatisfaction with their policies. And each one of these types of actions encourage people to come. We have new people every day in Congress who've never been to Congress before, and they've heard, oh, there's that group that meets every day, and you too can go and talk with staffers in the congressional offices. So it's not a lack of people that want this policy stopped. It's that we have a very obstinate political system that is not going with the will of the people. Mm-hmm. And on one level, you could say one of the reasons that Harris was not elected as president of the United States and Trump came back in was because of the Biden administration's genocide, complicity in the genocide of Gaza. That there were lots of people who said, I am not going to vote for you because you're a genocide president. And Donald Trump is terrible, mm-hmm. but at least he's not, well, his policies toward Palestine aren't going to be good, that's for sure. But everybody was so fed up with Biden that it was like, nope, we're not going to vote for you. And the Democratic Party was stunned that the people of America would not come through and elect Harris because, I mean, she's part of the genocide and she wouldn't renounce it. If she had said, there are policies that must change, and in my new administration, we will change some policies, and one of them will be our approach to what's going on with weapons to Israel. If she had said that, she would have been elected, I think, very strongly.
What about confronting the Zionist lobby in America? We all know the power of IBAC. So, have you been exposed to any threats from the Zionist lobby?
Oh, the Zionist lobby is ruthless, ruthless, and what they are doing to the congressmen and women, that threatening them if they don't vote for everything for Israel, that they will make sure money goes to an opponent candidate, and they will get them out of office. The reach that they have because of donations that go into universities, that we see the policies of universities toward Palestinians are horrible. They're kicking the Students for Justice in Palestine off university campuses. They're not allowing encampments to go on. For us as activists, of course, they put us on all of the lists of the Canary list and all those. For me, as an older person and not in government anymore or not working, it doesn't bother me, but it bothers and should bother the young people that are coming out of college. I mean, their names are now on these lists that the Zionists have made of people that support Palestine, and that affects their ability to get a job. And we've had people that have been fired from jobs for being in Palestinian solidarity marches. So the reach of the Zionist lobby and the reach of the evangelical Christians is very, very strong in the United States.
Okay. By the way, we have to talk about your visiting to the West Bank. You have been there for 2 times, and you saw a lot of violations of the occupation.
Oh, indeed. I mean, going to the West Bank is such an eye-opener of all of the challenges that Palestinians in the West Bank have to go through. I mean, the endless checkpoints that people have to go through, the inability to get to your home or to your farm that's next to your home, but you can't get there because a wall's been built, or you can't get to your school unless you have to go through other people's houses because the Zionists and the settlers are on a road. The Hebron, what's going on in Hebron is just horrible, and it's been going on for decades. And now with the illegal settlements that have just blossomed, have just expanded, exploded, are horrible. And the videos that you see coming out of the West Bank, where these illegal settlers are claiming the animals and claiming the property of people that have lived there forever. So being in the West Bank is something that is a necessary part of one's education about what Israel does to Palestinians in the West Bank.
And you couldn't be there anymore.
Well, that's true. I have been to the West Bank for the last time because I've been deported from Israel twice now.
Reported as a terrorist?
They didn't quite say what it was. It was illegal entry into Israel. Yeah, it was illegal because you brought me into Israel against my will. And that's from being on the flotillas. And so I will unfortunately not be able to get back to the West Bank because the Israelis, controlling the border with Jordan, it's very difficult if you've got a deportation to escape their computer system.
What does Palestine change in you?
Well, I think Palestine changes your whole approach to humanity and your approach to um, how you morally act. I mean, and if you can't act to help people who are under such oppression and now under such a genocide, I mean, do you have any morality left? Do you have any humanity left? I mean, this is really the crunch of morality. Are you willing to stand up when you see people being so oppressed and that they are the victims of the genocide? I mean, if you can't stand up for that, to say no to that, then what can you help with? So
Now you left everything in your life and you just act for Palestine.
well, I act for Palestine a lot. I do have some other issues that I work on. I live in the state of Hawaii, out in the Pacific Ocean, another colonized area. So I work, even though I am a settler, a colonial settler in the state of Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
I do work with Palestinian solidarity groups for the liberation of Hawaii. And I work with them on the militarization to stop the U.S. military's huge footprint in the Hawaiian Islands, and then the same issues of militarization by the United States of other places in the Pacific Ocean, in Korea, in Japan, Okinawa, Guam, Australia, New Zealand. So that's part of my local activism in a way, local and then international, regionally, and then Palestine as, I mean, for the last year it's been nonstop Palestine, as it should be. And it will be until we can get the U.S. stopping its provision of weapons to Israel.
Do you have this dream as us as a Palestinian to see Palestine, free Palestine?
Absolutely. I mean, the chants that we all do every day, free Palestine, aren't just slogans, aren't just chants. They are the dream of the people of Palestine and the dream of everyone who supports Palestine. So I think we all have the same dreams. What Palestinians, though, are having to live under as they achieve this dream are so much different from what we as supporters and activists internationally. So as we are here in Istanbul for using the vehicle of a boat, of the Gaza flotilla, to try to bring more attention to what Israel has been doing to the people of Gaza in particular. That brings us back every day that we work on this project. Make sure that we remember what the goal of Palestine, the Palestinians, free Palestine.
You still have these plans for going to Gaza through the flotilla, despite all of this genocide?
We certainly do. I mean, we have boats and we have lots of people that want to be on these boats, to be a symbol to the world, to say for the people of the world that are so concerned, that we want to be on these boats to try to challenge what's going on in Israel, or what the Israelis are doing to the people in Gaza. So we will, in 2025, we will have boats that will be challenging Israel.
What is your last message for people in order to support Palestinian issue?
Well, I think my last message would be, as Palestinians, don't give up hope. We, as people in solidarity and as activists, we can't give up. We can't stop what we're doing, because the people of Palestine aren't giving up at all. And despite the most horrific things that have happened in Gaza and the West Bank, they still are there solidly saying, we're not moving, we're not leaving, we are here, and the rest of us in the world must support them, and we will.
Thank you so much, Ann
My
Wright.
pleasure. Thank you very much.